We're forecasting 34 degrees for you in Denver, and that could break the current record low of 35 degrees. So what a dramatic change in temperatures that we've had. And the front is not going to be clearing everywhere. So not everyone's going to reap the benefits of a bit of a cool down, a taste of fall or a taste of winter, depending on where you are. Temperatures really remaining pretty warm here across parts of the east, but what a sharp contrast that we have. So we have temperature range of more than 40 degrees across parts of some of these states, and that includes you in Oklahoma as well as in parts of Texas. But everywhere down here in green, that's where we're dealing with temperatures that are below the 60-degree mark. And that's at this hour. We're still down there into the 30s in many spots. 32 in Castle, Des Moines down there in the 40s, Albuquerque, 43 degrees. So temperatures still.
Which one of you has been eating all the Cheeto snacks? This little baby can detect trace amounts of Cheeto. What? What did we get a cat?
It's a Cheetos thing.
Cats don't like Cheetos, I know.
Do we have any waterproof tape that instantly seals? Gorilla waterproof patch seal, of course.
Gorilla.
The first stock cars were souped-up family sedans, but today they're custom-built for the racetrack. Each car body must match the contours of templates set by NASCAR, the National Association of Stock Car Auto Racing.
You're using Johnson's car as a model.
On the racetrack, the shape of a car can give it an aerodynamic edge over the competition. So in NASCAR races, car bodies must have uniform curves. The regulations put the focus on driver skill and make the race a fair one. They mold some of the car's body parts from a carbon fiber and Kevlar material. First, a technician applies a release agent to a mold for the car's front end. Then he sprays a paint undercoat into it. This undercoat will eventually transfer to the completed panel. A computerized cutter slices the carbon fiber and Kevlar fabric into strips. It produces 22 pieces, each one cut to fit a different section of the mold. The technician rolls epoxy resin onto the fabric, one strip at a time. Once the strip has been completely coated, he transfers it to the mold. He tucks the fabric into the contours and smooths out any big wrinkles. He layers the strips 3 deep in a crisscross configuration for structural integrity. A coworker covers the carbon fiber with perforated plastic. They add layers of absorbent polyester and thick plastic, which they glue to the edge of the mold. They insert a fitting and connect the vacuum, which sucks out air and excess epoxy resin. The polyester material soaks up the resin as it flows through the holes in the first plastic layer. This both smooths and compacts the carbon for layers. Then it's into a hot oven to bake for 3 hours. This activates the epoxy and combines the layers of carbon fiber and Kevlar fabric. An employee removes the completed stock car panel and inspects it. Then it's over to a weigh station. At just under 8 pounds, the part is lightweight yet virtually shatterproof. Meanwhile, at another factory, work begins on the stock car chassis. They build it from square steel tubing that's super strong. An employee welds the pieces together to create a support structure for the car. At the next station,
Box here.
the worker forces narrow steel
Food box.
against a spiral bit to carve
It's
out.
heavy as hell. I don't know if it's anything in here.
This tubing is for the roll cage, the structure that protects.
He said I went to 6th Avenue.
Huh?
He said I went to 6th Avenue.
The notches will
6th
help
Avenue.
enjoy
7th Avenue. He said what's 6th and 7th Avenue?
It doesn't say that, does it?
No, but he got lost.
Creating a
Okay.
smooth surface.
Our sister I've been here earlier is actually was on
Who was
6th.
this?
Their own truck.
Huh?
Their own truck.
They had their own truck?
It said food on wheels.
The
It was a
key
box truck. Like, it was like a
to the mainframe of the
U-Haul?
chassis.
it was a U-Haul, okay, right?
Yeah.
When it
They
said food on
tapped
wheels,
before
and they had
going to final welds.
the door had this. Actually said this, Mom.
The next part is called the
It
rear
said
flap.
something like this or something on the side of it.
Holds the fuel tank and has mounts for
It
the
was,
rear
I
suspension.
think it was FedEx. I'm not sure. He's already just FedEx on it. The box trust melts on
A
it.
technician scans it using a digital measuring probe. The scan confirms that the
So I don't know
dimensions
what's
are
in there.
correct. They now assemble the various steel and carbon fiber body parts to the stock car
I got it.
framework.
These recipes for
Okay.
food.
Look at that.
They measure the completed car body by laying template grids on it. The biggest one sits over the center of the car. They pull a gauge through the gaps between the templates and the car body. The gap cannot exceed the tolerances set by NASCAR. They often
Extra
must tweak the shape of
one.
the body part to meet regulations.
Save $1.
Once the car has been painted, they apply headlight decals where the real ones usually are. Real headlights would add too much weight and pose a safety risk if they shattered. It's
Ignore.
10 weeks of intensive work, but this stock car
Ignore.
is now ready for the mechanics. Things are about to pick up speed.
That's pretty neat. That's kind of neat. NASCARs, Mom. They're made of fiberglass and polyester.
Okay, do not eat.
Ask anyone
Oh.
anytime period what their favorite make of car is, and I bet you that no matter who you ask or how far back in time you go, you will be hard pressed to find anyone who gives two flying feathers about General Motors' most neglected brand, Buick. It is a brand of car stuck out in the no man's land. Neither a luxury brand or an economy tag. Maker of neither timeless classic or modern masterpieces. My generation mostly remembers Buick as Grandma's grocery getter and church shop. They were nice-ish cars that were relatively affordable, but other than that, there's not much else to report back about them. Even in Buick's newest ad campaigns, they seem resigned to their role as the forgettable family paddy wagon. The entire ads focus on people not even recognizing the cars as Buick. Oh, hey, check out my new Buick. Oh, this is a Buick? Huh. Never would have guessed. Such is Buick's modern life. But for a brief moment in history, they did have
What?
the time in the sun, and then immediately vanished right thereafter. So let's take a look at NASCAR's most maligned, forgotten, and eclectic manufacturer today, Buick.
That's it.
Meal for two.
Buick's journey in NASCAR begins with the very first NASCAR Cup 6 race held on June 19, 1949, at the old 3/4-mile dirt oval Charlotte Speedway. No relation to the Charlotte Motor Speedway today. Curtis Turner and Lee Petty raced in 1946 and in 1948 Buick respectively. But only Turner managed to stay out of trouble and nab a top team. Lee Petty crashed out past the halfway point. He got about $25 for his troubles. The triple shield would be a fixture in NASCAR fields from that point forward, albeit in limited numbers. There weren't exactly a whole lot of them running around turning laps. Most races only had a couple of them being fielded at any given time. And even the big tracks with 60 or even 70 cars in the running saw only a few Buicks throw their hat in the ring. Yeah, even back then, not a whole lot of people cared about Buick. So how long did it take for one of these things to wind up in victory? With seasons in the early 50s often consisting of 30 or 40 some odd races at the time, surely Buick found its way into victory circle fairly soon, right? Do you consider the 7th season of competition soon? Yeah, we'd have to wait 6 years to see Buick win its first race. It took 187 races to finally get the job done. And it's worth noting that pretty much every single other manufacturer had wins up to this point. Studebaker, Nash, and Hudson all had wins. Hell, the Hudson Hornet had absolutely crushed the competition in the early 50s, as they were the first make to provide factory support to NASCAR. But all of those makes aren't even around anymore to gloat about. Hell, Jaguar even scored a win before Buick.
Jaguar.
In a one-off victory at the Linden Airport circuit in 1954. What about the big three? Ford, GM, and Chrysler. Ford had all three of its makes on victory lane. Fords, Lincolns, and Mercurys won tons of races in the early days. Chrysler Corp also had wins for all its brands. Chrysler, Dodge, and Plymouth. And even GM had wins for Chevy and Oldsmobile. Pontiac hadn't won yet, but that was just due to lack of trying on their part, as they'd only made a handful of starts in total up to this point. And Cadillac was also winless, but only because very few mad lads wanted to risk busting out a perfectly good caddy for shots and goggles and $100 paychecks. Buick tried with all manner of drivers over the course of years at all sorts of different racetracks. The beaches of Daytona, the paved high banks of Darlington, and every dirt track from Georgia to Maine and back. But finally, after 187 shots, one bullet finally struck at the Charlotte Speedway where it all began. Buck Baker finally did the deed. Herb Thomas, sporting the only other Buick that day, crashed out. Considering that Herb Thomas has an absurd win percentage of nearly 21% across his entire career, the fact that he didn't bring it home is pretty ridiculous. But hey, that's just Buick for you. Give them the best driver with the best team around them, and they'll still find a way to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. Speaking of Herb Thomas, he got to make their second win just 3 months later at the 1 mile paved Raleigh Speedway. Oh hey, I've been there. Man, they really let that place go to hell lately. Anyway, with 2 wins now, one on a dirt short track and the other on a big paved super speedway, surely the floodgates were about to open. Those 55 Buicks were bad, fast, on all manner of tracks. And win number 3 was right around the corner, right? Well, we'd have to wait a while. Win number 3, February 1981, nearly 3 decades later. That is the longest drought between victories of any manufacturer in NASCAR history by a mile. Hell, it might be the longest between wins for any make in any motorsport, period. Was Buick just staying home at this time? No, they were out there. In the 1960s, there were a lot of Buicks racing. See, here's some pictures of them. In the 1970s, there were still a lot of Buicks. Hell, Dale Earnhardt's first Daytona 500 in 1979, where he charged up to the front, passed A.J. Foyt and Neil Bonnet and led a few laps and brought it home in 8th. You might think that was a Monte Carlo, but no. He did that driving a Buick Regal, which looks very similar to it. The Regal back then was a fairly popular make and model with everyone. Dale Earnhardt made 3 starts in the Buick that year en route to his Rookie of the Year title. And during this winless streak, Buick had a lot of models go out there and try to bring home the trophy. Whether it was the Regal, a Roadmaster, a Century, a Riviera, or a Skylark, nothing worked for Buick. Nothing was revolutionary about them or inspired any sort of brand loyalty. Oldsmobiles at that time redefined what the NASCAR world thought about aerodynamics. Chevys were out there winning out of sheer tenacity and had a massive following. Dodge and Plymouth dominated the 60s and 70s with a king at their helm. Ford was a massive conglomerate who threw tons of money around and won through sheer crushing weight of their corporate might. And Mercury was the Wood Brothers' baby. The trio of the Silver Fox, Mercury, and the Wood Bros were unstoppable. Buick never had anything like that. No heroes, no innovative trickery, no aces up their sleeves. They were just out there collecting paychecks. But as the 80s rolled around, a simple rule change and a big factory support push would change everything. If there was ever a decade of Buick, it was the 1980s.
Wow.
Starting in 1981, NASCAR implemented new rules to make the cars look more like their showroom counterparts. I mean, these things had gotten pretty far out of hand by the time the late 70s wrapped up. Here's what a 1980 Buick Regal in NASCAR looked like, and here's what one on the street actually was supposed to look like. Yeah, pretty dramatic difference there. NASCAR was still holding on to the bigger chassis of the 1977 season. So in 1981, they shortened the wheelbase to make the car look more like the compact models of the 80s. Gone were the land yachts for the 1970s, and in came the box body brigade. There was also a stipulation in the new rules package that stated that manufacturers had to provide the body panels for their cars, so that way they would always remain stock looking. Everything else was purpose-built by the teams. Only the outer shell was in the automaker's hands. The new changes were not well received by the drivers. The shorter wheelbase made the cars terribly unstable. And Darrell Waltrip said of the new cars, those things were evil. They'd snap around on you in a heartbeat. Chevy, Olds, and Ford were not prepared for these rule changes and brought in cars that had the aerodynamic properties of a thrown rock. But Pontiac had gotten the drop on everyone with the Mach, a car with a sloped rear cabin that brought air gently down to the rear spoiler, and the sloped front end helped it cut through the air. Buick, however, either by genius or dumb luck, brought in the rebooted Regal, which had a sloped front end and a rear cabin that didn't make the air as turbulent as its Olds and Chevy cousins. Everyone thought that Pontiac had the 1981 Daytona 500 in the bag. it was just assumed that it was a done deal. But as the day went on, the King charged to the front in his Regal and won the day for his 7th and final Daytona 500 crown. That record still stands as the most Daytona 500s won by any driver ever. A King driving a Regal and winning a crown. How fitting. But Buick wasn't done. Oh no. They'd go on to win the next 47 of 61 races, as well as the 81 and 82 championships with that same Darrell Waltrip who hated the package at the beginning of the year. Safe to say he warmed up to it. In 1983, Ford was tired of getting their asses handed to them by pretty much all of GM's brands. The 81 and 82 Thunderbird had gotten the derogatory nickname Boxy Bird assigned to it, and Ford realized it was time for a change. So they completely retooled the T-Bird from the ground up. They took a look at the rules and found out that they pretty much had the leeway to do whatever they damn well pleased with their new car, and debuted the 1983 Thunderbird, a car so streamlined that it scared the bejesus out of its competitors
Whoa.
and demanded a response. The
Or
Aero
penis.
were now
That's
fully
penis.
underway.
What's wrong? Something wrong?
No. One does come with its own pan,
It does?
and the other two didn't.
That's different.
That in the refrigerator. And I need one chicken, chicken breast, and chicken.
All right, ready for the Great American Race?
Yes.
Versus car. What's the car did you choose, Bugs?
I am driving the Truffleade Nero.
Oh, okay. David, what kind of boat you have?
The Speedo by, was it
Pagasi.
Pagasi. Oh, nice. All right, well, I'll be on the Mammoth Dodo. I'm going to go ahead and fire my engine up. I have waves to deal with.
Firing my engine up.
All right, boys ready?
I am ready.
All right, in 3, 2, 1, go.
All right. Yeah.
I got a taxi out. Let's make a nice spot for me to take off here. Here we go. Full power,
Oh,
baby.
God.
Woo!
This
Roll
is gonna be
away.
interesting.
We'll see which way is faster. Are you ready to lose?
I'm ready
And
to
we're in here.
get into a pursuit.
Yes, there's no way you guys are faster than a boat. It's an island. Like,
We'll
There's
see
no way
about
that plane is faster than my car.
No more food.
Well, I have to turn around and now I'll be heading that way. So what we're doing is we're doing clockwise around the entire map. We'll see who's
Yes.
faster.
yep.
Whoever makes it at the end,
Loser,
I can see
loser
David.
pays for food.
He's way ahead of me.
Yeah, loser buys the
Oh,
rounds.
shucks.
I just have to slow down because there's a highway patrol.
Sharks. Yeah, see, this is where it gets interesting.
I drove on top of some kind of sea creature. I don't know.
I love it. Sea creature. That's
Could
good.
have been messy. I don't know.
God, I gotta be super vigilant for any bushwhacking
Cops.
police.
I don't see Dave down there.
Oh man, this boat is ripping it.
You'll
Oh,
probably
it
see
is.
me, Jeff, if you look hard enough on the highway.
That's probably true. Me just scooting it.
Yeah, you'll see a little red and white car zipping in on
I'm being
traffic.
fair. I'm staying to the coastline. Should I stay to the coastline or no?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm trying to drive as close to the. I'm taking all
Piece
the
of
highways
trash.
closest to the coastline. Fuck, I'm fucked.
Just go. Fuck
I'm
'em.
going.
Yeah.
You got
Oh, I'm
fucked.
fucked
No,
times two. I'm fucked
Bye.
times two.
You knew
Oh.
it was gonna happen.
Oh
You knew
shit!
it was gonna happen. It was part
I
of the
didn't think it was
race.
gonna be this quickly.
Yeah, I did. That
Well, that
that
cop
one.
was slow rolling, you know?
Yeah, you had cops that are slow rolling you in Polito the whole time.
That's true.
They knew something was up.
Especially when I got
Amazon.
generic, I'm not gonna stop
It's
late.
done.
Yep.
Dave,
Chair.
Dave, do you see me?
Chair.
anywhere?
No, I don't. Where
Where
you
are you
at?
at? I'm over at the power station.
You
Right
have
where
olive
the,
oil around here
comedians
somewhere,
are.
don't you?
Those are rocks in front of me. You're way ahead of me.
Oh, okay.
I'm just now passing the lighthouse.
Yeah, I was going so slow on my climb, but now I'm at my altitude. I'm actually averaging about 138 miles an hour.
I'm
Oh,
only averaging
shit.
like 70
Yeah.
or 80.
in a straight line.
138, and you don't have to deal with traffic or police.
Well, now it's slowing down again, so
Oh
I'm pretty
man.
Where you
I
at,
don't know,
Max?
I'm in the air half the time because waves.
I just passed the truck stop on 15.
Oh, you're ahead of me.
I'm moving it, dude. I'm doing 130 miles an hour.
Nice.
This car is fast.
Time for some risky voting.
I'm just hugging the finish line here. Oh yeah, you're doing the watch time now, Dave.
I don't remember where it was. I don't need it.
So it's looking like
Remember, it was right
the
here.
boat is going to be the slowest, but we don't know.
I
You
would
could crash,
say
go to jail. Who knows?
that's true.
Who
And I
knows?
do have-
You could crash, go to jail. Who knows?
Use that then.
I can get in
That'll be
trouble
me.
for flying too low.
If anybody's crashing, going to
Yeah,
jail.
oh, well, I wrapped it
Way
down.
too low.
I mean, it's not like I'm
Yeah,
speeding.
I lost
You
it.
can't.
I lost it. Oh
there's
yeah.
no speed limit on the water.
Good God, this car is so fast.
Yeah, there's been a
Needs to be.
few. There's like almost a
It
year ago
is.
since I've seen it.
Oh, great. Now I'm going to be taking the worst bridge in San Andreas
Oh, you're taking the one that takes you down by the airport?
by the docks, the red and green bridge.
Yeah.
The one that is just terrible traffic. Yep, I'm on it.
You're
now.
already by the docks?
Yes,
That
sir.
olive oil,
Oh,
that
this
oil
is
will go
garbage.
I'm getting close to the docks. Dave said it's garbage. Man,
Looks
this,
like lightning for traffic.
these planes eat
There's
fuel
olive
like you
oil
wouldn't believe, man.
No, apple.
Yeah, Jeff might run out of fuel. I might,
You might run out of
wreck and get
fuel.
arrested. You could win,
Yeah,
Dave.
you
Just
can
like
still
the
win. Just by being Dave.
slow and steady can and
I cannot
sometimes
win
wins the
the
race.
power station.
Oh, yeah, you're not good.
All right. So, Bugs, I'm going to we're on the south side. I'm going to stay where the bridges are. Where you,
Yeah,
Cocoa powder.
that seems fair.
Yeah, but that's.
Yep. So you
Are
did
we
already
outside?
by the airport?
I
Oh,
know.
I'm sure
Yeah.
you did.
Powder.
But you know what they love to say? You cannot run that radio here.
I think I can.
This
I
You
did.
can. It did.
Oh,
There's a little oil.
well,
I don't know. I'm gonna have yet. Nothing.
142.
Jesus.
oh my God.
This I am not using any speed hacks.
Right.
Let me double check just for the record. Just because I just
Oh, I heard